Okay, this is my 2015 garden video. I didn't get to make anything this spring, so I'm just going to make one before I start tearing everything down for winter. Right now the weather's cooling off and I need to cut back the tomatoes so they can start to ripen. So I'm just starting in the back of the yard. That's kind of what it looks like from the alley. There's my new composter that Ron made me. Just put some plants along the greenhouse. This is just a bed I had watermelon and cantaloupe in here, which I think I got one watermelon. Basically, I threw some cardboard down in the ground, threw some dirt and compost on it, and planted some zinnias and threw some seeds in. And so I wasn't expecting much this year because it's pretty thin, but I'll keep adding to it as I start cleaning things up. I'll start adding more dirt and stuff to this and make a new pile. This is the back of where I put I used to have black raspberries in here and I tore those all out, put in zucchini and summer squash, and I didn't put them in until July 4th, and they're doing amazing. I haven't seen any cucumber beetles. I'm sure they're in there somewhere, but they haven't destroyed anything, so that was good. And this one here was a volunteer red raspberry that's done quite well, and threw a bunch of zinnias and everything. So we'll walk this way. So if anybody is looking to do a compost pile, we've done the pallet one, which didn't work so well. We just need to redo it, do the design. But this one works awesome, and Ron has the plans if anybody wants them. Just random tomato thrown in the ground here because there was no place to put it, and I cut it back last night, so that's why there's no leaves on it. And this one with the small cherry tomatoes on it, that one is a volunteer that came up behind the compost pile. And then the grapes did really good this year. These are just some containers that these two have. This one here and this one have potatoes in them. I haven't dug them out yet, so I need to spill those over and see what's in there, if anything. Kale. I have some beets in here with some anise hyssop. The bees love the anise hyssop, and this plant has done great. It's actually done better than the ones that are in the ground. This was a one raspberry plant that produced a lot of raspberries for the small amount of space it's in. Here's where I whacked back this plant last night. That's why there's leaves everywhere. This thing's being really weird. Yeah, borage coming up in the middle of the ground, just randomly. There's some more tomato plants. This one is my San Marzano, and it is just loaded. Of course, it is also sitting in cow manure, so it's liking that. And that's parsnips. I haven't checked them yet. So here's carrots and basil. This is I put kabocha squash, there it is, in this bed to climb the trellis, and I had a couple volunteer tomato plants, and that one volunteer tomato plant, that on top is all tomato plant. And then there's cucumbers on the other side and beans, and they're starting to come in and take over the trellis too. So here it is. Okay, all the furry stuff is asparagus. Looks like dill, and does this every year. It just kind of takes over, and I need to cut it back. A lot of cutting back this weekend I'm gonna have to do. A lot of basil. I haven't even had a chance to make pesto yet. Okay, so that's the look from this is cucumbers and beans, and there's an okra in there. There's the okra, that tall thing. This is the trellis. Oops. So my beet patch, I need to take the rest of the beets out of here and do something with them. It was loaded. It did great. Was able to give a lot of beets away. Was able to make a lot of pickled beets, so it turned out really well. And this is these are peppers and tomatoes. The nasturtiums are really liking the cool weather. These are my brother Kim's giant marigold seeds that he gave me last year, and I didn't believe how big they were going to get, but they're almost as big as I am. They're just crazy. I didn't know marigolds got that big. So I'm going to have to save seeds from them because they're pretty cool. I did a lot of zinnias this year, and let's see. In here we have broccoli, which the broccoli didn't do much because when I got it in, the weather got hot. It just wasn't a good year for the broccoli. But I got a lot of greens, and we've been dehydrating that. These are eggplants in this bed, and they're just starting to do well here. For some reason, I think it was just too hot. Oops, sun's coming up. Sorry about that. This here's my... trying to get away from the sun. This bed is where I took out the raspberries, but I definitely am going to start waiting and planting squashes types plants till after July 4th, because that really worked well, and I am getting produce off of them, and the bugs have left them alone. That's just a bunch of zinnias. There's a cucumber bed that had potatoes in it beginning of the season. Okay, so now I'm not able to. So this is eggplants and peppers. And this is a new bed, and the eggplant and peppers are really liking this area. Here's an eggplant. There's one hiding, and I've got this one here. That is fairy tale, thin white. These are my 4 o'clocks. That's what the yard looks like over there. Sage in there. More zinnias. I just threw a Swiss chard and a collard green in there, and now this is all just basil and flowers in pots. Just trying to incorporate more flowers. The random kale in the middle of the yard. These are raspberries and catmint. These are containers that I got from Ron's grandma, and they've worked out really well. The flowers love them, the lantana and the coleus. And this is Cuban oregano, and you can eat it, and it does great. I've cut it back several times, so I'm going to try and get cuttings and overwinter them, and so I have it for next year. A random kale plant and some more kale. We did all the coleus and zinnias from seed this year, and so I was really happy with how everything turned out. Now we'll go to the other garden. Yeah, here's a shot of the garden, what it looks like. This is just a small garden. I haven't even got to the big garden yet. Have some strawberries and more basil and coleus and plants. Here's the anise hyssop. That's pretty much done. I just threw some peppers in these containers. So I tried to do more flowers this year. I'm not really good with flowers and want to get more pollinators, so you have to introduce more flowers. And these are just new, the raised beds that are going to go along my fence because the other one's deteriorated. We just have to get them over there. Just haven't been home. Some sedum. Okay, here's the big garden. The nasturtiums are just going crazy. So I started tearing down, cutting back my tomato plants. They were a lot taller than this. They didn't do really well this year because there was so much water. It was just so wet. It was so humid. I got a lot of blight. But now they're pulling out of it. Now that I have to cut them back, see that one there, that big one? That's what the rest of them were looking like before I cut them back. Because now they're pulling out of their blight and trying to produce really well because the weather's cooled off a little bit and dried up a little. But now I have to cut them, so. And here's what it looks like. Here's my herb garden. I don't know what this thing is kind of freaking out. More tomatoes. And then here's my beans. I need to get out and pick them now that it's cooled off. They're just going crazy too. There's some cabbages. So this was cabbage. I lost several cabbages and I've lost several kale plants to some kind of a bug that will burrow, lay its eggs on the stem, then they burrow into the stem and they eat it from the inside and it turns mush and they just die. So that's the one problem I've had with bugs this year. I haven't seen a lot of the white butterflies that lay the green worms, so I haven't had a problem with them either. It's been really good as far as those bugs, not having to fight that, but the other ones that are destroying the plants, that's not fun. Like here's chard and kale in here. I'll show you what this is, what that bug does. This is one of my lacinatas. It just apparently laid its eggs on here. They went inside and they totally just ate the inside of my plant out, and so the plant dies. Sometimes you can save it if you catch it early enough, and I didn't. But these are just kale and Swiss chard. It's been a great Swiss chard year. We've been dehydrating all of the greens that we can and making powder out of them so in the wintertime we just put powder in our green smoothies. And this was it's kind of a mess. This was my lettuce bed this year. I've got some lettuce going there. And then Swiss chard along the edges. And this bed is kohlrabies and chard, and there's some kale in there too. And that's still doing well. We're just taking like I said, just taking the greens and dehydrating them, making super green powder. And I also, these butternut squash were planted July 4th. So that worked out. I didn't have to have any problems with bugs. And so I cut back the plants last weekend actually because I knew that they need to start ripening and any new ones weren't going to get mature enough. So let's see what we got here. And those are my new beds on the side that Ron's replacing. So they're taller. I can get more dirt in them. And there's the tomatoes. So that is my 2015 garden update. Oh, back there is a compost pile, and we had 2 volunteer tomato plants come in that, and I let them go, and they did great, and a cucumber plant. So